Welcome to the Communication Research Center's December Colloquium. My name is Michelle Amazine. I'm the director of the Communication Research Center and Associate Dean for Research at the College of Communication. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. First, and this is a new one, we're asking everybody to put away their devices. No laptops, no cell phones, please. If you are a comm student who's wishing to earn SONA credit, make sure that you have checked in with our staff outside. So I would also like to thank our staff. So running around is Amanda King, our lab and research manager. Thank you, Amanda, for all your help. And we have Elena Rodolitz sitting outside. Thank you, Elena, for all your help. Without our staff, these colloquium talks would not be possible. So thank you. Today, our colloquium speaker is Dr. Maria Elizabeth Betsi Grabe, who is the Dalton Family Professor in Communication and the Director of the Division of Emerging Media Studies at college. Born and raised in South Africa, she worked as a television news documentary producer during the state of emergency in the mid-1980s. She came to the U.S. and earned a master's degree from Baylor University in international journalism, and then earned a PhD in mass media and communication from Temple University. Dr. Grabe's research has focused on informed citizenship and political participation. She uses experimental methods to investigate how news message reception varies among different demographic groups and across different modalities and styles of news packaging. Recently, her research focus has shifted from informed to mis- or disinformed citizenship, producing insights into the navigational resilience of citizens in crowded and polluted information environments. Her 2009 book, Image by Politics, News and Visual Framing of Elections, received the 2010 Outstanding Book Award from the International Communication Association and the Distinguished Book Award from the National Communication Association. She is a fellow of the International Communication Association and the previous editor of Communication Theory. Today, Dr. Grabe will be sharing some of her ongoing research with her talk, Taking Images Seriously. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Betsi.
Thank you, everyone. I don't have a microphone, but I'm going to try and do my best to project. So if you can't hear me in the back there, please signal me and I'll try and talk a little louder. So you might wonder why I'm going to talk to you about images, and I'm filling the screen with goldfish, and you have reason to wonder about that. At the outset, I just want to say to you that I am of the opinion that media have become so central to our lives that they are to us the fish don't know the bird. They live in that ecosystem seamlessly and with low levels of awareness. I'm not sure. I really don't think they know that they're in it. But in the same way, we don't really use media like this way. We live in a media ecosystem in very much the same way. That's a departure point from how I think about media, and images are incredibly important in that media ecosystem that we live in to make it so seamless and real. So this is what I've been talking about today, and I really hope I get to cover all of this because you can see I saved the best for last year. So let me start and talk a little bit about the natural history of sight. You can see I'm going epic on with that timeline. And I am going back to the beginning of Earth, of prehistory. And then I want to fast forward to this point here, 543 million years ago, where if we trust the scientists who work in fossils, they tell us there was an absolute explosion of biodiversity at that point. It's known as the Cambrian period. And their explanation for this is that that is where the first eyes evolved, right here. And this little creature there called the first eye. Now, you can imagine that moment when the first living creatures had some sensory awareness of what goes on around them. It really tore up the rules of existence. It changed how the 3 to 4 different animal body architectures evolved. I mentioned the explosion in biodiversity. And it influenced how they ate and how they mated. And you can imagine those two elements of human existence are profoundly affected, that it could cause an explosion in biodiversity. And so from about 3 to 4 animal body architectures within a matter of 2 to 3 million years, which is nothing on that timeline, right? That's a blink of an eye. We moved to about 36. It's about the same number of body architectures that we have today. And so, you can imagine you are food for others to stay alive and evolve. You develop muscles to do like sausage and grow wings. I'm talking about almost millions of years here. You develop feathers and antlers and shells and all kinds of other things that today we look at that here and say, explosion of biodiversity. Now, humans came along much years ago. And it's really hard to date speech, just because what we use to speak is soft, and so not very well preserved records. And then here about 30, you can see how fast we're moving now towards the end of prehistory. About here, 30,000 years ago, you think the first drawings were made. And then history proper begins. The minute we started counting and developing alphabets, you can see the bias towards writing. But the whole idea of this epic timeline that I'm giving you here is really to just demonstrate that there is a long prehistory to our communication today that produced us as human beings. There is a long history of sight, that we used sight and that we're part of that trajectory over millions of years. So, writing is very new in the existence and the cultural history of humans. And so, this is often why cognitive scientists say, why are you surprised that about 21% of adult Americans are functionally illiterate? The argument goes, our brains have not had time to adjust to reading and writing. We have no such problem with images because of this long prehistory that produced us, that were driven by eyesight. So, the whole point here is just to give you a sense of the long history of sight that predates us. So, eyes are very central in terms of survival, even today, among a wide range of all animals, really. You can really tell whether an animal is a predator or a prey, or just the location of the eyes. So, it's quite functional. Eyes close together allows a creature to zoom in on prey, where prey need to wider field of vision to detect uncommon danger. And so even larger images signaling predators and non-predators. It's a very consistent thing in all life fields. Of course, online there's all kinds of jokes about this with the eyes of predators and switch it with their prey, and it's kind of cute and funny. Here's another one that I really like. See how funny that is. So when it comes to us, I think it's pretty clear what we are. We are predators based on our eye placement. Doesn't matter what racial background we have. It doesn't matter how old we are, what our gender is, or how old we are. And this idea of eye placement close together versus far apart is, of course, not lost on the entertainment industry. We often use eyes and eye placement to create very menacing characters, right? So I'll just scroll through a few here. You can pick your own favorite menacing character here, and then in Avatar, the eyes placed so far apart, friendly creatures. So you can see that Hollywood plays with this kind of eye placement. All right, so I also want to make the point that scientists argue that we don't just use our eyes to see. Our eyes are super important. We don't just use them to see. They are also functional in facilitating social interaction. So there's this wonderful cooperative eye hypothesis that proposes that humans and their eyes are functional in watching the gaze of each other. So we communicate with each other just through following each other's eyes. And if you look at the human eye compared to other primates, you will see that our eyes are larger proportionately. Our eyes are also wider, which allows for more eye movement and following of gaze. And our eyes are also offset against our pupils and irises are offset against the soft white scale, which also helps us to follow other eyes more easily. And so there's even theorists that people gather evidence argue that this gaze following among humans enable or facilitate altruistic behavior, because we know, we can see if someone is following other people with gaze. And so that promotes altruistic behavior among people. Related to this cooperative eye hypothesis is the social brain hypothesis. It just extends what I've just described here. That the idea here is that the human brain is specialized for collaboration. And so those areas of the brain that I've identified here are all involved in this idea of the social brain. All these areas are implicated in facilitating cooperation between brains. What I want to point to very specifically is this area here, the primary visual cortex, super important in this process. And then this cruciform face area here responsible for our remarkable capacity to recognize faces and also to be able to read emotion from other people's faces. And so together the neural systems that underlie face perception and our ability to understand and recognize affective displays in other people's faces is one of the most extraordinary skills that we need to have. There is no other category of objects we are this well equipped to recognize that human faces and emotional displays are human faces. And so together, in summary, the social brain really is there. The social brain helps us to anticipate behaviors in others, right? And also, and also make that normative evaluation. Is another person a foe or a friend? And should be cooperative. And this is all enabled with lots of parts of the brain, but as I mentioned, very critically, that's visual cortex and the pre-support facial area in the brain. All right. So we talked about the natural history of science. The next area I'd like to go into is cognition. And what's important here is to take note of how important sight and sound is early on in life. Basically, at birth, both are present. If you look at this graph here, here's birth. And you can see immediately that, we have simple pathways available for vision and hearing. You can see how much later language develops, and then gesture with other higher cognitive functions come much later. As a matter of fact, babies are able to tell faces from other objects within the first 7 hours of birth. And at about 6 months, babies are able to tell facial emotion, at least negative versus positive facial emotions. So yes, cognitively it comes early and it's quite critical beyond early childhood. If we look just at the actual processing data on images versus words, it makes for a very comparable story. About 50% of your brain is involved in visual processing. 70% of your sensory receptors are in your eyes, and it takes very little time to recognize it as image. As a matter of fact, it takes 100 milliseconds, or 1/10 of a second, to recognize the image. Compared to that, about half a second to recognize the word, or 500 milliseconds. So in terms of processing and brain architecture, real estate in your brain, images are quite dominant, which lines up with this natural history, epic timeline, and stuff that I've seen. Now, important, this profound visual acuity we take with us into media developments. And that's where I want to go with this, is the semantics of the images. In other words, how images create meaning. And there are two critical ideas that I think would be helpful to you if you're interested in this area of research. The first is the idea that images have this indexical quality. What do we mean by indexical quality? It means that mediated images look like the things they represent. I happen to love Scottish theatres, and so that little photograph, that Scottish theatre, looks like a Scottish theatre. If I put the word It doesn't look like a solution. And so that is the indexical quality of images. They make them quite powerful because it lends a lot of authenticity to images compared to images. Images look like things they represent. Of course, we should not trust our eyes. And so even just simple things like retinal fatigue can play tricks on us in how we observe the world around us. Or contextual cues can really create all kinds of distortions. That long rectangle in the center is not shaded. If I take the background away, that is exactly what it's doing. Right? So, but beyond these eye distortions due to muscle or context, the second important thing to understand about images is that they are not explicit. They don't have an explicit semantic set of meanings. At the same time, images attribute personal qualities to people and things. It makes causal claims. It draws comparisons. It makes generalizations. And all of that without formal semantic rules. In other words, it's really hard for us to look at an image or a piece of video, more complicated, and say, that is where the comparison was made, or that is where the generalization happened in the communication. No. Can't do it with images. It's very hard to do that because they don't have explicit semantic rules. And here we go. You can see I'm going to veer off here into the area of politics now. That image right there, maybe I should call on you to say, what do you think is that image conveying about Donald Trump? Anybody? Evil. Would it surprise you to know that this image appeared in the New York Times, the bastion of objective journalism in the United States? But as you can see, I mean, we can point to this light and say that's what's creating the comparison, but it's quite difficult to do everything that is happening. How about this image? In an election campaign from several years ago, another New York Times published it. What do you think this image is conveying about John McCain's audience, or John McCain himself? His campaign is not going. And why? What else? What do you think? There are lots of stuff going on. Yes? Youth-focused. What else? It's a small crowd, and not very diverse. Yeah. Another New York Times image, and conveying all kinds of things that the New York Times would never print with words. The sentences you've spoken about both these images will not appear in the New York Times, but these photographs do. All right. I hope you will forgive me. I'm going to go off a little bit into politics. That's not exactly what the abstract to this talk promised, but you know, an election happened, and I think we all struggled with understanding exactly what happened, or maybe we're not all struggling, but I think it's in any way an interesting time. So let me take this conversation about images into the political realm. And let me start by saying leadership is vision. It just is. If you look at primates, we know there are all kinds of visual displays that signals hierarchy and leadership. And we as humans have our own ways of visually beating our chests to display leadership. And queen, I don't know how many crowns she had, but she probably needed the moment to make the point to us all, who's the top row in the UK. All leadership tools of visual display to make sure leadership and hierarchies are understood. Motorcades, classic way of demonstrating leadership. Parades, with weapons, and masses of and soldiers, right? All ways in which leadership is. So let me take it a few steps down, and just talk for a few seconds about how people vote. How do people make voting decisions? And if we look at surveys, people tell us they make their decisions about 55% based on the character of the politician, about 33% on where the politician is standing on the sheet. If we look at media coverage, it follows more or less that same breakdown with a lot of emphasis on character coverage. And that is where campaigns then focus their attention. They focus on how a candidate displays character. And in very subtle ways, most of the time. And we as voters have very low levels of awareness of how our perceptions of the candidates are being handled by the campaign. And I wanted to make you aware of a whole group of people who are celebrities in their own right in the political realm, known as image handlers. These are people working on the campaign, responsible for this image handling of candidates. So how are images of candidates handled? It's typically related to the nonverbal behavior, as well as what candidates say, of course, their appearance, who they associate with, and where they appear. What is in the backdrop and around them? What is it that the cameras will pick up when they're in public? And so I'm going to go through three very prominent qualities that this image handling typically produce. These are things that are very important to American voters. And so the first one is patriotism. I'll just throw out some images here. You'll hardly ever see a political candidate without a flag in the backdrop or on their lapel. I mean, this is done across the political aisle. You see it all the time. Of course, there are many other ways that patriotism is displayed and associated with candidate monuments, places of cultural significance where press conferences are held and so on. All right. The next one is family. And here we very often see how candidates display affection. This is apparently quite important. Europeans, for example, do not have this. So a lot of affection displayed towards their wives or partners, and these affection or displays of affection have various levels of success. They don't all look equally comfortable and appealing. That was at the Republican National Convention, and this was on Victory Night, acceptance speech. But it's not just their own families and spouses. It's also how they, in a very cliched way, display affection towards other people's children. So politicians hugging and kissing babies. It's really the most cliched image handler trick that exists. I have thousands of these images, and again, it doesn't always go right? And sometimes it's just over the top, just completely over the I'm not sure what the point of that is. It's so overused, it's cliche, other than to tell you that I think it might be that image handlers think that in the canon of this scene displaying compassion and affection towards really vulnerable little babies, that we will assume they'll be nice to us and not raise our taxes or something. It really is a bit of a mystery to me. And now I want to talk about the laws of these character frames, populism. Of course, there are many different kinds of populism, which I won't go into detail right now, but there's authoritarian populism and there is democratic populism. And there are populism happens on both ends of the American political spectrum as well. But populism very often shows up in what politicians eat, right? It's a very odd thing. Yeah, Trump known for being really fond of fast food. Joe Biden really likes an ice cream store. And yeah, I'm not even sure what Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris like. They just eat street food, but does it quite, or did it quite frequently during their campaigns. I want to show you this. It was a fad among image handlers. I was really intrigued by this. It's over now. You hardly ever see this anymore. But a few election cycles ago, there was this obsession with bales of hay. You saw it everywhere. To create this sense of, I don't know, down on the farm, regular person, unpretentious, non-urban, right? Hundreds, and all of them did it. So it was clearly an image handler fact. I also want to just take you back to the thing of Obama's image handler, who tried to put him in a populist frame, which he really was not good at. They sent him down to a bowling alley to go and play roll balls there, right? On the secret Trump, just took his jacket off with a tie, and he was really not good at it. So it was an absolute disaster. And they, after that, tried him again as a populist, sending him to farms where he fed cows for the cameras and wore a Stetson, and again, not something that he is comfortable doing. What he was very good at doing was connecting with people. And he went to diners, very populist kind of move to make. And where people responded very positively towards him. Right? A lot of warmth and affection displayed in these local eateries. That same election, Biden was also as the vice president on the campaign trail, perhaps not so successful in connecting with people, but open, I would say. Many pictures like that. Of just not understanding personal space. I also want to show you Mitt Romney here, who really also tried to play the populist frame. You know, after every election, there's like a tell-all, several tell-all books that are written about inside campaigns. And apparently he does have a bit of a germ issue. He's really concerned about germs, and so doesn't want to touch people. And even if he tries to connect with people dressed all like an ordinary guy, he had them roped off at a distance. And then there are many images like this. I have all the collection of them too. But it made him look like a statue on the base, and not like an authentic candidate. All right. So, yeah, I've shown you a lot of eye candy here to make the point for populism. Let me just show you a little bit of data to give you a sense of how this American obsession with playing populism during elections, what the fallout of that had in terms of election outcomes. So I want to take it, it's a long time ago, to 2000, where Bush and Ford ran. George Bush comes from a very privileged background. so does Gore. But he has this uncanny ability to appear like a populist, a comfortable guy, very comfortable in his own skin. And his main image handler is Paul Rowe, very well known, big celebrity in politics. And on the Gore side, it was Bob Schrum. And these two men have known each other for many years, and they went full-on populism for both candidates. Now, Al Gore, I don't know how many of you have kept up with or even aware of his personal style, but he's very professorial, very brainy, not a populist at all. But Bob Schrum pushed him into the populist frame, made him wear jeans and throw footballs on the tarmac between flights to different locations, and he increasingly became uncomfortable in that populist frame, where he started to say things and do things on the campaign trail that was really awkward and awful. I don't know how many of you are aware that he at one point even claimed that he had invented this, right? Appeared very inauthentic, because he was uncomfortable in this populist frame that he was pushed into. And so, let me just show you some data here. What you see at the top here is daily tracking polls. So the question, the election was held today, who would you vote for? And you can see this is for Gore. So it's going down towards election day, here's election day. And what you see here is media depictions of Gore in the populist frame. And you can see that goes up as this one comes down. Now, if we run some statistical models on those two lines, there is a model that is significant, that includes visual populism. And that is also shown to be significantly a negative correlate to Gore's support among the voters. So by 2004, at the very next election, you would think the Democrats had learned their lesson, but no. They had another matchup between Karl Rove and Bob Schrum, and again, two populist campaigns, same old story. Kerry, who ran against Bush, not a populist, not in character, but that's what they did. They ran in a populist frame. And George Bush, again, very comfortable on his ranch, cutting brush, just a regular populist guy. Kerry, quite uncomfortable again in the populist frame. Ever so often he broke out over weekends and went windsurfing. Cameras caught him doing that, a very elitist sport, and that was used in many advertising campaigns against Kerry, putting him in the flip-flops. So, if we look at the data for this, it follows exactly the same pattern as the previous one. Here you can see it's almost 50% of the votes for Kerry's outcome in that elections. And so let's take a leap forward to 2024. And just quickly, I don't have any data for you here, not yet anyway. Of course, that is the iconic image of the election. And it very quickly became iconized and used and sprayed online in many different forms, like from drawings and paintings of it to it appearing on a coffee cup, entering again a populist kind of realm, and also puzzles. You could buy a puzzle of that image. There were even bullets branded with the Trump image. Of course, the king, the populist king of this past election, really knew how to do that. His campaign knew that well. A billionaire wanting to go to McDonald's and work there, shut down the whole McDonald's, but the show there was that he was serving people at the window and he was working the front. All of this because Kamala Harris claimed to have worked at McDonald's and he doubted that, cast doubt on that, and he would really works the way at McDonald's. Joe Biden's, in another classic slip of the tongue, made a reference to Trump's supporters as trash. Who knows what he exactly said, but Trump used that, his campaign used it, they put a wrap on a trash trunk, and he conducted a whole press conference from the seat behind the wheel of that trash trunk. And he wore the trash collector outfit, which he continued to wear on the tarmac on his way to other appointments that day during a press conference, and he campaigned at rallies all through that day in that outfit. What did we see about Kamala Harris in terms of populism? A lot of celebrities, right? A lot of appearances with celebrities. Perhaps a few images during the election that stuck in our heads, so to speak. Maybe her interview on Fox News was quite memorable, but nothing profound and clear, and certainly not a major populist statement, vision. Am I saying that's why the election turned out the way it did? I have no evidence of that. I'll just bring this to the surface with you. In a historical context, we know populism. We do have evidence of that it is a very important visual frame that image handling. All right, let's talk about AI. And I want to play this clip through at the outset.
Welcome back to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. We are in an unprecedented. Technology has vastly outpaced the ability of the public to recognize deepfakes, and even more so, lawmakers, many of whom frankly seem unable to manage their email. Take, for example, what you're watching right now. I'm actually not Jake. I'm a deepfake Jake, a deep Jake, if you will, created by comedian Danny Polishuk, who has only been using AI for 2 weeks. The fact that I seem so real suggests that real mischief and serious damage could be done with this technology, were it to be so utilized in the US, as it has been for bad purposes abroad.
Okay, real life Jake here now. AI-generated images, audio, and video such as that have slowly been creeping into American political campaigns. In Indiana, Senator Mike...
You know where I'm going with this. And so, if we look at this past election in terms of AI-generated images, there are some. This image was generated and circulated to make the point that the Biden administration wasn't rescuing people during the hurricane in an efficient way. So this image was one that was circulated in terms of that campaign. This is an AI-generated image targeting Black voters. I don't know how many of you would have guessed that it's fake. How many of you? I think it's not a very good one, but anyway, it was used on social media to bring home the idea that Trump was popular among Black Americans. This was an image that was generated this way, also not very high quality, drumming, home the idea of immigration problems leading to crime and so on. There was of course also the Swifties for Trump image that was AI generated and being distributed via social media with Trump responding I accept. And due to, a relationship that Kamala Harris had with, many years ago with the mayor of San Francisco, there was a lot of sexual innuendo about circulating on social media. This is one. Of course, there were also people putting Trump in a prison suit that was also circulated to remind voters that he had some legal trouble. And then strange, funny things like this also circulated. My point here is this is what I've been able to predict on AI intervention. It does not match for me the concern that we see expressed in media and the concern that each of you might have about how AI is going to destroy democracy, especially during election time. This is it. There have been other cases outside of politics, right? And there's even been some sound manipulations a while ago. But this is not a storm of AI-generated manipulation that we observed this past year. As a matter of fact, a lot of the campaign communication was paper that was circulated and pushed into people's mailboxes in the battleground states. There's a printer in Chicago. The name of this printing company is also interesting to take note of. If you understand the historical reference there, that let me pass on and just show you the kinds of flyers that they printed, this printing press, and that was circulated and put in mailboxes. Also, in Michigan, this flyer was distributed specifically in neighborhoods known to where a lot of Palestinians live. And so, yeah, you can see how it's presenting her as a very brilliant. So, AI, of course, I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned about it. My point here is that it is not a wave of serious AI manipulation, and as a matter of fact, there's a lot of good old paper. And so my point here is that the concern about AI and images specifically is that it's widespread and that it is inauthentic. You're back to the indexical quality of images. And so that's where most of our concern and the debates are. And that is larger, it looms much larger than focusing on, again, the semantic capacity of images that we talked about. And it also doesn't address the impact that AI-generated images might have on our sense of information security. So if we look at surveys, we can see Americans are deeply concerned about AI producing fake information that's misleading and political goals. So there is this kind of fever of concern about the integrity of information that makes us all insecure about whether we can trust information because of that. And every time there's a deepfake, the media, of course, go crazy. Just like they report crime. Right? Every murder is full headlines on all media, and We know from cultivation theory over time, if you report all the murders and horrible things that happen, people develop a sense of insecurity in the society that they live. In the same way, I'm arguing here that all this attention about every single AI deepfake is not contextualized. And there is a kind of a moral that has really negative consequences for our sense of security, trust in information around us, especially during election. So, about 2,500 BC, a very young and very insecure King Khufu of Egypt built the greatest of the Giza pyramids to really conceal his very shaky political standing in the region. And why am I telling you that? And this is what I want to end with. This deception is a very old thing. It dates back as long as and deception typically utilizes technical innovation, communication innovation to spread it. And in the end, historically, what we see is that people catch on to deception and develop a sense of literacy to tell if something is deceptive. And so you can see I'm trying my best here to counter the moral panic about AI and instill some trust in that all is not over and that you are fully empowered to become media literate and have the capacity to question, especially images in your information environment. I don't want to sugarcoat this too much. There are things that I think you cannot even imagine at this point that might pose very serious threats to information security, the integrity of information. But I wanted today to have some positive message here. And with that, I'm ending and I hope you have some questions.
Is there anything you found surprising?
So is there anything I find surprising?
Yes, and like in terms of everything you were studying and everything you presented to us, is there anything that surprised you as a person like in this field?
Yeah, I think I am kind of surprised in how we respond to these innovations. That we would go into a moral panic so quickly and distrust everything around us, right? All the years of trust that traditional media have built up to inform us as citizens, it's out the door. Can't trust them anymore, right? And we do know that politicians also now use the idea of deepfakes to discredit real information that's unflattering to them. Right? So it becomes a tool. Like, don't believe it. It's a deepfake, right? If politicians, are covered in a negative way, or they caught on camera doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. Right?
Just on that, I think a couple of months ago, the royal family published a deepfake of like Prince William and Kate. What's your opinion about like figures like that using deepfakes?
Well, I don't think they have enormous, political clout, and it was really done in a way to hide a serious illness and to project a sense of normalcy because of the endless and high levels of interest should they have done it? I think it's a slippery slope. And I can't say that I'm cheering them for it, but I have some understanding for the action that they have taken. Yes?
Have the rest of the public developed any effective image so far, or is it too early to really know how to have this develop?
That's a really good question. So I just spent some good time in Germany with people who actually developed stable diffusion, which is behind AI-generated images. And they are in the process of creating tools to detect it within seconds. Now, whether that will become a standard app you will install on your mobile devices, I don't know, but that's where it's going. So people will have, I think, soon some way of telling. Of course, yeah, there will also be developments to make it undetectable. And it's like a whack-a-mole, right? War between tools to detect and innovation to higher levels of sophistication. AI development. I think one of the key things is, yes, media literacy. I don't think we should put too much emphasis and be too relaxed and think we got to put the onus on us as citizens to educate ourselves to be able to detect it. It's our responsibility. I don't think that's quite fair. But I do think, we still teach Shakespeare in the high schools. Nothing against that. But if I think about how many emails young people read, how many images young people encounter, I think we should also start to teach people some media literacy skills to just give them a fighting chance in the media ecosystem. And it was interesting when I threw the image up there that many of you very quickly told me that you could see that was a deepfake, the image of Trump with a group of African Americans. Right? So I think skills are already in some form there, and hopefully we stay up with AI developments and become more sophisticated. I'm hopeful. Yeah.
Dr. Grabe, thank you so much for sharing your research with us.